on the screen in just a moment where you can see, and it is how to find a universal and personal year. So in this case, if we put up the next one, which shows you the past, the present, and the future. Okay, now the past. So somebody says to me, okay, Lloyd, if that was the case, what was the universal year back in the year 1902? Very simple. 1 plus 9 plus 0 plus 2 equals 12, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So in that year, it was a 3 universal year. So somebody will say, well, okay, Lloyd, well, you know, the Titanic sunk in April of 1914. Okay. So what was the year? Yes, I do believe it was 1914. And if so, that would be, it would have been a 6 universal year. Now, if you see in the center one, this is the present, 2026 adds up to a 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1. Now, here's how it works in numerology. If you got two numbers, you got to keep reducing it. This is called the FADIC system, FADIC, which means if you got, let's say there's a building number that's 163. Well, 1 plus 6 plus 3 equals 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1. So the single digit is called the root number, where the number that made it up are the numbers that gave it its variety. So let's say if I says, and listen, who's going to be here? I hope the world is here in the year 3409. But if it is, that will be a 7 universal year. How did I do it? Simple. 3 plus 4. Yeah, 3 plus 4 plus 0 plus 9 is 16. And 1 plus 6 is 7. In the year 3409, it will be in a 7 universal year. Now, of course, you and I are not going to be here. I hope the world is here if man don't blow themselves, the kingdom come. But the point is that whether I go to the past, I go to the present, I go to the future. So somebody says, well, Lloyd, well, when this country was founded in 1776, well, that was a 3 universal year, because 1 plus 7 plus 7 plus 6 equals 21, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So that would have been the universal year, which means what everybody, this is pets, dogs, frogs, cats, you name it, everybody. That's why they call it universal. There are no exceptions. Now, then there's another side, because people say, okay, later for the world, what about me? Well, there's another side called the personal year. And that is a technique where what you do is you take your month and date of birth, but instead of putting your year of birth, you substitute it and put in the year you wish to know. So if I wanted to know, well, what was my personal year? Let's say if I had somebody born on April 20th, that tells me, if I went back in the past and it says, okay, what personal year was I going through, born on April the 20th in 1902, it would be simply a 6 personal year. No, it'll be a 9 personal year. But here's what we do. Now, this is a case where I took 3 examples about the year. So in other words, to get your personal year, we now know about the universal year, but to get the personal year, what you need to do is you take it where you substitute the year you were born, and in its place, you put the year you want to know about. So that way, if let's say you had and the beauty of it is we all have milestones, graduations, marriage, kids, transitions of relatives, or wherever the years that were significant. If you wanted to know what cycle year you were going through at that time, whatever year you can recall, you just put the month, the date of birth. So in this case, I got the April 20th, but I'm saying, okay, so what are they about to go through for the year coming up for 2026? These are the 3 examples. But let's say this person did something major in a significant way back in the year of, let's say, 2016. So if they did it in 2016, I would take April the 20th of 2016, and that tells me they were in a 6 personal year at the time that they were going through that. So every single number year has a description, which I'll get into later. But let's give this example. The first one, April the 20th, And instead of the year, I substitute the year I want to know about, not their birth year, but the year you want to know in question, whether it's the past, the present, or up the road in the future. Okay. That's why I have my Star 8 app. It's ASTAR, the number 8, where you can get on Amazon or Amazon, not Amazon, Android or iOS, excuse me. All right. So this person is going through a 7 personal year. Now let's take the second example. This person is born on June the 30th, but instead of putting in the year they were born, I want to know what kind of year they will be going through as it relates to the present at the end of this month into the new year of 2026. So they will be heading into what is called a 1 personal year. Then I took the last person that was born on July 13th, and instead of taking the year of their birth, that is the key. So for those of you who happen to be viewing it, just get a pen and paper, just put your month and date of birth, but instead of putting your year, you substitute it and put the year of 2026. You might want to know what's going on in 2028. You might want to know what happened back in, 2004 or 2020. The beautiful part is whatever year you wish to know about, whether it's the past, the present, or the future, this is the technique to do it. Okay. And so that's why this guide to Astro-Numerology is a way to get you to understand that everything is cyclical, just like the weather. So let's take the first example. They're going through a 7 personal year. Now, there are certain numbers, and I'm going to explain all of them from 1 to 9 in a moment, but just in a brief, 7 is more of a spiritual number, okay? Normally when people are about to enter a 7 personal year, this is when they, and see, here's the interesting thing about 7s. It is not material, such as this country in the world. Normally things are more material, which is about money, jobs, careers, professions, things of that nature. Or it's about relationships, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, male, female, marriage, divorce, whatever the case is. Well, 7 is totally different. 7 is God's number. 7 indicates that the person goes within. When a person is going through a 7 personal year, as this April 20th example is doing, that means this year for them, they will be seekers of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Going in a 7 year, it rules strange dreams. It rules secrets revealed, not in a bad way of bad secrets, of dark secrets, but you may never know you had a talent about something or whatever the case is. I had an example one time where a client, his mother had passed away, and they had something after that, where the family get together and they kind of, talk about the deceased and over, food and beverages and stuff like that. Well, come to find out that one of the relatives said, well, your mother had beachfront property. See, so had it not been for this, so that's what I'm saying. And so this is what the nature of a 7 does. It generally normally brings something that you did not know or were aware of to the surface. And so they have strange dreams, prophetic dreams. They'll step out off a bus and say, oh my goodness, I remember dreaming this before. And so since 7, I call it the law of attraction. And what it simply means is this: don't chase after what you want. Think of 7 as a magnet. If you look at the principle of a magnet, if you put something close to the magnet will draw it to them. However, if you turn the polarity of the magnet around and reverse it and push it to the object will move away. So when a person's in a 7 personal year, as this example is, don't chase after what you want, because it tells me it's trying to get away from you. So instead, if it's money you want, relationships you want. So for example, and self-talk is going to be very important too. So let's say a person's in a 7 personal year and this person's saying, I don't have no money. I don't have no money. I have no money. Well, guess what? The source will make sure it doesn't have a penny, because that is the energy you're throwing out. But so instead of thinking that way, you think of, man, it's great to have this money. It's great to be in the best of health. It's great to find this relationship I've been looking for. And then, as the elders used to say, you let go and let God, because 7 is God's number. And so of all the religious divisions or denominations there is on this planet, you know what they all agree about? that the number 7 is a sacred number. There is no question. I don't care what part of the world you come from in terms of religious upbringing. They all agree that 7 is a sacred number. And 7 is in the sense that, you have 7 days in a week. You have the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the 7 wonders of the modern world. You have 52 weeks in a year. 5 plus 2 is 7. So, there's so many examples. The body has 7 holes in it. There's so many things. 7 phases of the moon. I could almost bore you with it, but in fact, I have a chapter in my book, Numbers in You. And by the way, this is my book right here. All you got to do is just pick it up at the store, Amazon or your favorite store, and you see I have a chapter on it called The Sacred 7. So this person, to get what they want, I'll put it, when I talk to a person in a 7 cycle, this is how I explain it to them too. They're what are called vision boards. Vision boards is when people cut out dollar bills and yachts and cars and whatever, and they pass them on the board and put it on the wall, right? Well, when a person's going through the law of attraction, which is what I call the 7 cycle year, this example, it simply means that they should put it on the mental screen of their mind, see in their minds those things that they want: a new car, better health, more finances, whatever it is. Don't forget, in a 7, if you're chasing it, it's because it's trying to get away from you. So you don't want to chase after anything. You want to magnetize it to you. And the key is to think about it, to just dwell on it. You know how sometimes you're in a job and you're just bored to no end, and you daydreaming, or just daydream about all the things you want, like to go somewhere. And by the way, in a 7, normally they go away where there's the sand, the sea, and the sun, or desire to get away from the crowd, desire to get away from everybody, to just be left alone. So I spent a little time on that, but let me tell you about the second example. And the person born on June the 30th, they will be entering a 1 personal year. Now, here's the thing that makes this one interesting. Their personal year is the same as the universal year. Okay, this is where normally there's a universal year, and for each individual, they have their own personal year. That's why they call it personal. That's for me. Okay, but in this case, this person's example of June the 30th, their personal year is the same as the universal year. So when they get help and assistance, that's going to be good, because this person's key numbers are the 3, the 2, and the 7. And this is a whole nother technique in my book, Numbers in You. I got all the numbers listed from January the 1st to December 31st. But here's the point. What it tells me is this: if this person's key numbers are a 2, a 7, and a 3, that tells me that the year 2027, 2028 are going to be amazing for them, like it was in 2018 and 2019. In other words, 2027 adds up to an 11, and 1 plus 1 is 2. 2028 adds up to a 12, and 1 plus 2 is 3. So since her key numbers are the 3, the 2, and the 7 in this example, I would expect that this year is going to be important, but even more so around September, October of 2026, going into the next 2 years of 2027, 2028. In fact, they would be my new best friend. So this way, there's normally a change in location, a change in career, a change in an office. Whatever the case is, it's like something new. And in other words, anytime you're in a 1 cycle year, it's like starting all over again. And then I'll take the last one, and then we're going to go through each of the numbers from 1 to 9 to see what personal year you're in. So in this case, this person is born on July 13th. And as you see, they will be passing through a 3 personal year. Okay. Now, 3 is called the good luck cycle, the cycle where things begin to open up, begin to blossom, it begins to flower. It begins to see the rays of the sun where things come out. I always think of 1 as planting seeds, cycle 2, which is germination, but cycle 3, in the case of our last example here, is bringing fruit to market, bringing your wares and things like that to the marketplace. It rules all things social, It is called the prosperity cycle. It is the networking cycle and whatnot like that. But what I'm going to do is, for those of you who happen to be viewing this, just take your month and day and substitute the year that you want to know about for 2026. Or for those of you, you can get excited and get in any other year. But so I'm going to start with all the cycles from 1 to 9, including 11 and 22 also, if they should occur. If you happen to be in a one personal year, that means you now have a chance to start a brand new 9-year cycle. That means now you can start all over again. That means that this year that we're about to leave, a person has been in a 9-year, which means this is the time to wrap it up. This is the time to let bygones be bygones. You know, it's water under the bridge, is closing it, because now this year is a year for a person, anyone in a one personal year, to plant the seeds of what they want. So let's say a person wants to move, right? And they can't move right now because of either the finances, the logistics, or whatever the case is. As long as they plant in their mind the seed that, you know what, come the time that this 9-year cycle is over, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be somewhere else. So it gives you a fresh start. It's one of the few cycles where your 3 best friends are me, myself, and I. In other words, how can you help anybody moving forward if you don't have your stuff in order? So that's the nature of a 1 cycle year. So in the second example with this person, a 1 cycle year, and then the universal years in 1, 2. So this person is going to get a boost because they're in lockstep with the universe. Hi, Kathleen. And I'll tell you what your year is too. So when a person's in a 1 cycle year, it means it's time to be independent, self-reliant. Normally, this is when people get raises, promotions, advancements. They start their own business or something of that nature. Anybody in a 1 personal year will find that those under the signs of Leo and Aquarius and Aries will be of help to them, or anybody born on the 1st or the 4th, the 10th or the 13th, the 19th, 22nd, 28th, or 31st of the month. In some way, shape, or form, they will play a part in your role throughout the year for the most part, okay? And so that's what I'm looking at. Now, let's say a person is in a, by the way, I will say this for those in a 1 personal year. Let's say you have been in what is a codependent relationship. Did you been depending on this person for this or depending on that person for that? Well, when you're entering a 1 personal year, circumstances in some way along the course of the year will force you to stand on your own 2 feet, because it's about planting the seeds of what you want, not for others, but for yourself. So this is one of those few cycles that I said you got to be selfish. What am I getting out of this? What's in this for me? And that is the cycle or the attitude you should take. Now, a 2 cycle year is just the opposite. Now, 28, somebody says, Lester says, what about 28? Well, 2 plus 8 is 10, and 1 plus 0 is 1. The beautiful part about it is if you get 2 or more numbers, the rule is to reduce it to 1 single digit. So when I gave the example earlier of 163, mentally it was 1 plus 6 plus 3 equals 10, because I still have a double number. Then 1 plus 0 is 1. Now, there are 2 dates in the months from the 1st to the 31st of the month. And the numbers that throw people off is the 28, like in this example, and the 29. Because the person said, well, 2 plus 8 is 10. And they're absolutely correct. But you still got 2 numbers standing. Don't forget, in numerology, you must use what is called the FADIC system, FADIC, which means you keep reducing till you're down to 1 single digit. So then a person will say, well, what about the 29? Well, 2 plus 9 is 11. That is true. However, they need to go to 1 single step, and because there are 2 numbers standing, they must say 1 plus 1 is 2. So that's it. So if the person is born on the 28th, I would assume that the year is going to favor you, because even if you're not a Leo or an Aquarius or Aries, the fact that your birthday adds up to a number 1, and it favors anybody born under the 1. Now, the 2 is just the opposite. In a 2 cycle, that's when you become the helpmate, the negotiator, the healer, the listener, the person who comes to kind of bring competing forces together. They're the ones that, like, this party is not getting along, that party is not getting along, and they kind of like strategize where both are kind of like on the same page. 2 is a cycle where they see this, the opposites, the yin and the yang, the up and the down, the close and the open, things of that nature. So it's about striking a balance. Normally in a 2 cycle year, there's always I call it the transitional cycle. Either changes in relationships, changes around the home, or changes in the workplace. But the key is to be patient. The key is not to rush, because that is the nature of a number 2, where one's a very forceful, proactive, assertive. Well, in a 2 cycle, you just got to be patient. You know how, I was giving the illustration a moment ago about planting seeds in a 1. And I remember one time I was visiting my grandmother in the South, right? And we planted something, and I'm standing there with my New York City self looking at the ground, looking for it to grow. Now that I look about it, it's, you laugh, but like, yes, it's going to grow. But if you think it's like, I guess now at the switch of a button, you press a button and everything, like the lights come on. But in Mother Nature, there is a process. Well, in a 2 cycle year, there's a process. There's a germination. There are things that's going on beneath the surface, but nonetheless, it is still doing what it's supposed to do. It is not obvious. It doesn't have that big bang yet. But before you know it and turn around, you start seeing the fruits of your labors come. That's when you get to the 3 cycle year. In a 2, it says be patient. In a 2, it says take your time. In a 2 cycle, it says be understanding. And so with that phrase, you can catch more bees with honey, fits a 2 cycle year if you happen to be in it, okay? And again, you find your personal year by taking the month you're born, the day you're born, and putting it to any year in question, in this case, 2026, and whatever that year comes up to. During the course of this cycle in a 2, you're likely to meet anybody under the sign of Cancer in a minor way, Taurus, or especially if they're born on the 2nd or the 7th, the 11th or the 16th, the 20th to 25th, or the 29th of any month as well. But again, it is about please being patient. And, and for the women, I tell them that when they're in a 2 cycle, that's when they use the Delilah effect. You know what I'm saying? It's just like you could have a woman who has a lot of positions or whatever the case is, and normally she would appear to be assertive and whatnot, but it's just using a tactfulness of sweetness. And the perfect example I give in a 2 cycle year is like in the Bible of Samson and Delilah. When the Pope wanted to go after Samson and he sent the armies, at least in the movie, it had Samson took the jaw of an ox and beat them all back, right? Then what did the Pope do afterwards? He sent little old Delilah up in there, looking good, smelling good, no knife, no nothing, and seduced him. So I tell women, especially if you're going through a 2, and even men, especially if they've been known to have a very assertive, imposing, almost bullying attitude, to switch it up. Like in the Army, in the military, you have the Air Force. That's one strategy by air. You got the Navy, that's by water. You got the Marines by land. So the strategy in the 2 is to just be sweet, just be simply irresistible. It's like when my daughters want something, they're so nice to me. They really, really nice. And it's how far in my pocket I got to go. So think of it in that way. So it's not about bowling people over, but kind of charming your way, and not in a way that's deceptive or undermining, but just be sincere and being nice and whatnot, where people say, what in the world has gotten into you? Now, if you are in a 3 personal year, that is the cycle that deals with expansion, excuse me, where things begin to open up. It's called the good luck cycle. It's governed by the planet of Jupiter, where the number 1 cycle is governed by the planet of the sun, and the number 2 is governed by the planet of the moon. Well, the number 3, the cycle that I'm about to talk about, is governed by the planet of Jupiter, the good luck planet. So if you go to an astrologer, the first planet he's going to look at is which planet is your good luck planet, which is Jupiter. In other words, which house around the 12 houses around the wheels in your horoscope is Jupiter found. And so wherever Jupiter makes his presence, it always denotes good luck, expansion, things begin to open up for them. things begin to it's a networking cycle too. It's a cycle where self-improvement, creativity, imagination, expression. And the thing I love about 3 cycles is this: if somebody challenges you, say you can't do this and you can't do that, when a person's in a 3 cycle year, they'll seem to be motivated to overcome any negativity that's imposed. Like, oh man, you'll never do that. And in a 3 cycle, the person get attitude and says, you watch and see what I'm going to do. You know, this is one of the hallmarks of it. It also deals with all social networks, meeting those kind of people, those people that are going into things that begin to deal with networking and all those interactions. It is also a career-oriented cycle too. It's a cycle that's governed by the period of 5, which means a person is energized. A person is very expressive. The person becomes very popular. Now, to the negative, like in all things, with a 3, it tells you don't overextend yourself in a 3 cycle. So in a 3 cycle, let's say all of a sudden you got a taste for, you like a particular brand of ice cream. Well, in a 3 cycle, you might want to have it more often than not. This is when people have a tendency to pick up weight, because 3 is about expansiveness. That's what Jupiter denotes. It expands things. So can it let us hope, because it is a cycle of prosperity in a 3, let us hope it expands your pocketbook or your resources rather than your waistline, okay? If you can keep that in mind. 3 in the 3 cycle, it says remain positive despite how anything looks in front of you. Stay positive, stay committed. Do not let people deter you from your goals or your objectives or things you're going to do. And what happens is you will find that in the 3 personal year, that the people that are likely to help you will be Sagittarians and Pisces, or anyone that's born on the 3rd, the 12th, the 21st, or the 30th of the month. They will be of help to you. And it's also about entertainment. It's also socializing, going to events and social gatherings and things like that, concerts and art shows and things. But the point is to begin to kind of raise your awareness and expand your creativity, and definitely expand your networking, because that's what it's about. Now, let's say if you took your month and date of birth and added to the year, and you happen to be in a 4 personal year. Well, this is a cycle that oftentimes people find challenging, especially with this new generation, Generation Zen, whatever it is they call it out here. The point is this: in a 4 cycle, the symbol of a 4 is a box. In other words, the person has to stay within the limits. They have to stay within the confines. They have to stay in their lane, okay? In a 4 cycle year, this is where you lay the cornerstone to anything that's important. In a 4 cycle year, because there are 2 sides to the 4, but the first side is more about following the traditional line of order, learning how to be structured, learning how to be organized, learning how to have a blueprint or a plan that you know how, when you go from step 1, how you're going to get to step 2 to step 3, that lead you ultimately to the objective you have in mind. It's in a 4 cycle year. So in other words, what I'm saying is this: when you're in a 4 cycle year, you got to put in the work. You got to put your shoulders to the wheel. You may have to work up a sweat, but the beauty of it is this: in a 4 cycle year, what you put into the year is what you get back. Now, I think this newer generation, they says that they've got this entitlement mentality. They're going to have a hard time in a 4 year if they don't understand the nature of the 4. Each cycle has a lesson to be learned to take you to the final objective of the 9 personal year. In a 4, it's about laying a foundation. It's about having a blueprint. It's about having a sense of purpose and intention when you do things, not helter-skelter, not just on a whim, but in a way that everything is planned out. So like a planner, you know what I'm saying? A calendar planner on your phone or whatever the case is, knowing what you're going to do, what time you're going to do it, and things like that. So yes, you're going to have to work, but what you get in return, you know, it's interesting. One time I was in Texas doing a radio show, right? And the person said to me, okay, when is my ship coming in? And I says, did you send a ship out there? Because what I'm trying to illustrate to this person, and illustrate to you in a 4 cycle year, is if you don't put anything into the year, if you're in a 4, don't expect to get anything back. It's the law of reciprocity, okay? It's the law of going back and forth. What you put in is what you get back. And if you understand that, then all of these cycles is to teach us something along the way, to add to our growth and understanding, become better in each and every 9-year cycle. Like there's cycles of the seasons. Like right now, it's December, it's wintertime. Here in New York, it's getting cold. Okay, it's gonna get colder too. But the point is that that is how it works in your personal years. So in a 4, it's about putting in the effort, doing what you have to do, making the sacrifice. But is it worth it? Yes. I had a client that when I told her at the beginning, this was a couple of years ago, when I told her, she said that everything she did and she saved, and she said by the end of the year, she had saved enough to go on a cruise, because it's about being prudent. It's about being efficient. Needs come first than wants. You might want this, but you need to deal with this. This is like a 4. That's how that works. It's about having that kind of purpose and not waste, not want, not lend, not borrow, not. That's kind of the thing with it too. So if you do that, you'll find that you'll do very well. Now, who is going to help you during this course if you're in a 4 personal year will be those under the signs of Aquarius and Leo, in a minor way Gemini, or they'll be born on the 1st or the 4th, the 10th or the 13th, the 19th, 22nd, 28th, and 31st of the month. All right. So again, it's the kind of cycle that what you put in is what you get back. But for those of you who feel that the world owes you something, if you're in a 4 personal year, you're going to get your feelings hurt. Reality, there is going to be what is called a reality check. There's no question. Okay. So I'm told that this newer generation, whichever it is, X, Y, Z, Zen, they got all kinds of things going to label now. It ain't no baby boomers and all that other stuff. But the point is, there is a phase of it where people feel that, I ain't got to do nothing. You owe me. In the real world don't owe you nothing. And so if you know how to do it and approach it with that attitude in the 4 personal year, you will do well. Now, let's say when you put your month and date of birth together and added the 2026, and you happen to be in a 5 personal year. Now, 5 is the midway point in the 9-year journey. Okay. So think of a 1 here and a 9 here. Well, dead center is where the 5 is. That's why they call it the turning point cycle, the pivotal cycle. You're at the way I describe it, when you're in a 5 personal year, it's like you're driving along the highway, you get off at the exit, and when you get off to the exit or the stop sign or the traffic light, what do you see first? Normally you see signs going this way, that way, keep going forward, whatever the case is. So it is called the turning point cycle. It is a cycle of opportunities. It's a cycle of possibilities. It's a cycle that begins to get you out there before the public in some way. So anything having to do with sales, business, commerce, communications, import, export, the stock exchange, the literary field, the travel industry, all of these things, it adds variety. 5 is the cycle that ignites its freedom. Where 4 is restrictive, well, 5 does the opposite. It breaks the mold. It breaks you out of the restraints that you've gone through in the prior year. It begins to give you that freedom and flexibility to come and go as you please, to add more variety and spice to life, to a need to travel more, to get out more, to communicate, and things of that nature. And any talents, gifts, skills, or abilities you have, this is the best time to bring it before the public in some way, because 5 is a public number. And 5 is a number, and I tell people when they're going on in a 5 year, if you're in a relationship, the secret to holding on to that person in 5 years is to let that person go, at least to give that person because the person in a 5 year wants to breathe now. They've been under some restraints. Now it's like, I can catch my breath and I can do this way or do that way. It brews a lot of variety. So it really, really is a thing where you can get a movement and freedom, variety, flexibility, things of that nature, and especially when it relates to career and communications and getting your talents and gifts and skills out there before the public. So if you got anything that you need to offer, and sometimes we underestimate ourselves because almost every human being I know and met have got some special talent. It's just, do you see the talent within you, yourself, and then bringing it before the public? So we all have opportunities. Is what we do or don't do with them. Well, 5 year represents a lot of opportunities and a lot of possibilities. The point is, in a 5, you know how it says that opportunities can be fleeting? It means you got to pay attention. You know what I'm saying? In a 5 year, you can't say, okay, well, I'll get back to it later, because it ain't going to be waiting for you. It's air, it's movement everywhere you go. So if you can keep that in mind, you'll be able to take full advantage of all opportunities that come your way that appears to be sudden or unexpected or out of the blue, that you can make most of it for yourself. And this is very, very important. If you're in a 5 personal year, expect Geminis and Virgos to help you, or anybody born on the 5th, the 14th, or the 23rd of the month as well. Now, what happens if your month and date of birth, when you added the 2026, adds up to a 6? That means you'll be in a 6 personal year. Now, 6, first of all, always symbolically rules family, it rules health, it rules commitments and adjustments and education. It rules anything where duty and responsibility is required. So if you're in a 6 personal year, just don't say, I'll be there, and don't do it. You be a person of your word. If you can't do it, you might as well just zip it. Don't try not to say anything you can't deliver, anything you can't promise, because it does represent, hold on one second. Okay, I because had I been talking, we'd have got off. I had to feed the computer some juice. Anyway, but in a 6, this is when it's in a 6 cycle when people go back to school. It's in a 6 cycle that women begin to change their hairstyle. We guys, we just get a haircut, whatever the case is, we keep it simple. But this is when women want to change up their hair, their wardrobe, their appearance. They want to lose a pound or two, things like that. As I says, go back to school, whether it's into a college or high school or online course. But the point is to begin to take themselves to become a work in progress, to do better than they were before. Now, like the 3, 6 is also a money cycle. In fact, I call it the romance and finance cycle. So, for example, I'll explain to a woman in particular. There are 3 doors, right? Door number 1, if you're entering a 6 cycle year and you have nobody in your mix in terms of relationship, there's a higher than average possibility that is likely to change. Door number 2, let's say you are in a relationship and you may notice in the course of the relationship, there's a talk that kind of leads to a deeper commitment. Like, I think we need to date more exclusively. Maybe we need to share some space together. It'll be that kind of thing. Then door number 3, let's say you're in a relationship and they have been working your last nerve. That tells me normally by summertime, it'll probably be a wrap through a separation, divorce, a breakup, something of that nature. So when I say that, almost all the women know what door they're about to enter in the 6 personal year. Okay. And it rules love, marriage, separation, divorce, births, pregnancies, moving into a home, moving out of a home. But it always has to do things close to home, close to family. And it's also a health cycle too. So it means for those of you who may have been out of shape, this is a good time to take advantage of that, to kind of lose a pound or two, change your diet. And especially since so many things now are so processed, so much food is so processed, it will definitely be to your advantage to be more conscious of how you eat, when you eat, and what you eat even more so. Okay. So in the 6 personal year, it's about, and then on the finance side, it's interesting. Most of the people who do very well, because in my book, Numbers in You, I explain that the people who tend to make the most money in this country are number 6s. So if you're born on the 6th, the 15th, the 24th, or you're in a 6 personal year, that means there's a higher than average probability, like when you're in a 3 cycle, that your bank account, your investments, your assets will increase to a larger degree. All right. Now, who is likely to help you in a 6 personal year would be those under the signs of Taurus and Libra, or if they're born on the 6th, the 15th, or the 24th of any month. Now, let's say if you took your month and date of birth and added to 2026, and it turns out to be a 7, like my first example of the person born on April the 20th, it tells me that this is a year that normally goes against the grain of this culture about material things and emotional things, getting a job, chasing the bag, as people, whatever they call it, you know, relationships, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, whatever the case may be. Because 7 is designed to have you get your spiritual house in order. In fact, this is when people become born again Christians. They all of a sudden have an interest in psychic readings or go to psychic events. They go back to church or whatever the case is, but they're looking for something that goes beyond the 5 normal senses. And I tell people, it's like all of a sudden when you're in a 7 year, you have a strong desire to be by yourself, to not be bothered with a lot of noise, confusion, drama, but simply be left alone to hear yourself think. Okay, it's a person. And now, for those in the 7th cycle, this would be an excellent time to get into meditation, to prayer, or anything that takes your mind to a higher elevation, to hear yourself think, as they used to say. Okay, which is quiet, because it's hard to hear. So like a lot of people who meditate will kind of do it, especially here in New York, probably before 6 or 7 before the city wakes up, you know? And so it'll be very important for them then. 7 indicates don't chase, because it will elude you. I call it the cycle of the law of attraction, that whatever you're thinking about will be drawn to you. Okay. And so that is the important thing. So don't chase, but think. By the way, when you're in a 7, you have what are called strange dreams, prophetic dreams. Prophetic dreams, in a sense that even though, you know, you'll be stepping off a bus, say, whoa, I remember I dreamed this, almost scare yourself. It's that kind of energy. 7 means to follow your spirit, follow your first mind, and whatever you want, you visualize it on the mental screen of your mind. In a 7th cycle, again, as I said earlier at the beginning of this show, that if you're thinking you have no money, 7 will grant you your wish. Okay? You want better health? That's how you think. You want more money? That's how you think. And because 7 is magnetic, it governs the law of attraction. So if you put an object close to the magnet, that object will go straight to the magnet. And that's how you need to think when you're in that cycle. To just, what do you want to come to you? Okay, better health, see it. More money, see it. A car, see it. Relationships, see it. It's just that simple. That's the only way. But if you're trying to do it the normal, traditional way in this culture, then you're going to have a problem. But in your mind's eye, you see what you want. And it's like a vision board, except it's a mental vision board that you see. It may be worry or night sweats or whatever the case is. But the people who are likely to help you will be those under the signs of Cancer and Pisces, or born on the 2nd or the 7th, the 11th or the 16th, the 20th, the 25th, or the 29th of any month. All right. Now, let's say when you took your month and date of birth and added to the year in question, 2026, it's an 8. Well, where 6 rules, romance and finance, 8 cycle rules finance first, and then romance. Finance in the sense of money, power, authority, achievement, recognition, the ability to get things done, the power to make things move, the ability to accumulate things, assets, monies, positions, raises, promotions. It's a huge year. Everybody want to know when they're in the 8th year. Okay, so in the case of the person that's in a 7 going into a 7 personal year, the August 20th, all they got to do is wait one more year, the 2027. And not only that, is 2027 adds up to an 11, and 1 + 1 is 2. And this person's born on the 20th is a 2. So I know that around the same time next year, this person should be sitting real pretty when it comes to making that money and doing the things that relates. And so what it means is this is when people establish businesses. This is people reach high appointments as executives, presidents, vice presidents, managers, supervisors, directors. But the title becomes more authoritative, okay? It also indicates too, because it deals with your past. It deals with legacies. It deals with people you may not have seen or heard. In fact, oftentimes in an 8 personal year, it's a year that brings people back together because of a wedding, because of a funeral, because of a christening or baby shower or something like that, or family or high school or college reunion. But it will bring people back because it is the legacy cycle. It makes one come of age and kind of grow up. Now, when it deals with the romance, it deals with romance from the past. Somebody you dated in high school, or was in love with in college, or somebody you ain't seen in a minute, and destiny made y'all go in separate different ways, and all of a sudden you'll reconnect and find each other on the media platforms or whatever the case is, like that. Or a person will, in an 8 year, will find that they all of a sudden find some attraction toward those who are slightly older than themselves, who show exhibits of maturity about the things they do. Now, who is likely to be of help in an 8 personal year? And by the way, 8 is very philosophical. You know, you deal with your past, you deal with your legacies, you deal with life in of itself. But when it comes to real estate, property, wills, trusts, anything of a legal document of that nature, monies, finances, properties, this is the year to make things happen in that way. And again, in an 8 cycle year, you do what is called a lot of growing up. You begin to see what part you've been playing on life stage. You know what I'm saying? You know, there's this thing, all the world is a stage. So it's what part you played, what are the characters that have been in your life, and how they've been the best supporters, antagonists, or whatever the case is. So if you think of it like that, that's what it makes you do. But it makes you do a lot of growing up. Now, let's say your personal year is a 9. Oh, by the way, those who will help you in an 8 personal year will be Capricorns and Aquarius and Libras, or people born on the 8th, the 17th, or the 26th of the month. Now, let's say your month and day and the year you're adding of 2026 is a 9. Well, 9 means that means that this is a year where everything comes to a head. Everything brings about some sense of closure. It also brings about some sense of manifestation too. So let's start with the closure part. Enough is enough. Someone or something has got to go. When a person's in a 9 personal year, they wake up one morning and say, you know what? I don't need this. I don't need that. They may be looking at somebody in their life and says, you know what? I don't think I need you either. All right. And they begin to wash their hands of a situation. It's about termination, letting things go, water under the bridge, bygones be bygones, call it whatever you want to, but it's about a termination of things to kind of lighten your load, because don't forget the following year, you will be in a 1 personal year again. This is why you wrap up everything in a 9 year. So when you start your 1 cycle year all over again, you start minus all the debris and the things that have been holding you back and whatnot. On the other hand, it's about manifestation. Some of the things you may have been putting on the works for a while, now you can bring it front and center and make those dreams a sense of reality. In a 9 personal year, there's a sense of inspiration, motivation. You bring out the best in people. It also is a number of self-determination, where you want to be the master of your fate, the captain of your ship. It is a cycle whereby that whatever you want to do can now be done in a way that brings about a sense of completion and personal satisfaction. Another dimension of a 9 personal year is travel, especially long distance travel, here to another country, here from New York to California. Okay. I mean, long distance. I ain't talking about from here to Jersey, right across the bridge. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about where you got to get on a plane or get on a train and go some great distance. Or if you don't travel, that's when people come to you. Or people can travel outside of the United States to China or London or this place or that place or India or Africa, whatever the case is. But the point is, you begin to expand your horizons, because that represents it. The only thing in the 9 cycle is to avoid confrontations, because 9 governs Mars, which is the planet of the military or the war planet. So therefore, avoid in the 9 personal year arguments, accidents, confrontations, fender benders. Just be mindful of those things. You'll find it also in the 9 too. It brings out the more creative and artistic side of your nature as well. And as a result, you'll find that Aries and Scorpio and Leos will assist you, or anybody born on the 9th, the 18th, or the 22nd of, the 27th of the month, because 1 plus 8 is 9 and 2 plus 7 is 9. And what I'm going to do later is, I think on the next show, I'm going to be talking about the exclusive energies of the master numbers 11, 22, and 33. Because with these numbers comes a tremendous amount of responsibilities. Everybody wants to be a master number, but are they prepared to take on the responsibilities that go with it? You know, it's like if you ask everybody, if I stand on the corner and say, you know, I got $10,000, everybody's going to grab it. But if I says, well, listen, for $10,000, you got to put in the work, you got to work sweat, you got to meet with defeat or disappointments, then all of a sudden everybody isn't as interested. Okay. So these master numbers, things that for whom much is given, much is required. And we will talk about that. But I do want to thank everybody for this, especially Yana Woodhouse. And there are certain numbers that work better than others. And in my book, Numbers in You, a numerology guide for everyday living, that's available on Amazon, you can see certain numbers. In fact, I have everybody's birthday numbers. Also, even better yet, go to my website. It's called astar8.com, ASTAR8.com, to download my phone app. I'm trying to go 21st. No, I am in the 21st century now, where you download the app. It'll tell you your lucky numbers, your stress numbers. Then it'll open up a calendar. Will tell you your red star days for cautionary purposes and your green star days when you want to go for the gusto. All right. And then there's a lot more, because in the Star 8 app, it also talks about relationships, living, the car you drive, places you might want to visit, businesses, if you enter it. So I try to touch all the bases, but it's like having Lloyd in your pocket, as Yana would say. And as my kids say too, they don't say Lloyd, they better say Dad, okay? But the point is this, definitely without question, have that. And also I have a free newsletter. All you got to do is go to Lloyd-Strayhorn.com. There's my name at the bottom. Just put a dash in between Lloyd and Strayhorn and sign up for the free monthly newsletter. I've also done on YouTube actually a projection for the year. I did that with a Kimberly, and we projected all of 2026 from January of 2026 next month all the way to December the same time next year in 2026. Okay. I also have an almanac. I tell what colors will be good to wear each month, what stones or crystals you should wear or carry. And these are some of the things I do. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for coming to Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology. I would encourage you at some point to drop us a line, questions, things of that nature, so I can begin to answer them, because this is a lot of fun and you cannot do without numbers in any way, shape, or form. And one day I'll make that as a topic too, because during the 2020 COVID, where everybody was on shutdown and they all had these challenges, my challenges is start your day without using numbers. You can't. You're going to want to know who called. You may have to make a call. You may have to spend money. You know, you got to get gas. Everything is dealing with numbers. Every single thing we do. And it's so obvious we take it for granted. But in the meantime, I do want to thank you for coming to Lloyd's Guide to Astro-Numerology. And all of you have a great, great evening. Take care until then.
We are the sons and daughters of the soul. We are resilient and forever forward-thinking. We ask for nothing else than the opportunity to live and to create the lives that we were meant to live. We want nothing but an equal chance at options and possibilities. The same possibilities and options to live out our potential as our fellow man. We want to be heard, understood, and expressive in our reality. We are the future. We are the creative. We are here.